Hello, everyone. I have a confession to make. I forget things, not just where I put my keys. I forget where I put the thing I moved my keys to when I decided to create a better spot for them. I forget whether I paid a bill. I forget that I already bought mustard and buy another one, which means I now have 4 open jars of mustard in the refrigerator and no clear memory of opening any of them. I forget what I walked into a room to do, and by the time I have stood there long enough to remember, I have forgotten something else entirely. For a long time, I thought my house was cluttered because I was not organized enough, or not disciplined enough, or not trying hard enough. I organized my kitchen, and 3 days later it looked exactly as it had before I started. I cleared my desk, and within a week it had accumulated a new collection of objects I had put there temporarily and then forgotten about. I bought beautiful storage systems and found myself unable to use them consistently because I could not reliably remember which container held what. What I eventually understood is that my home was not failing because I was not organized. It was failing because every system I used was designed for a memory that works reliably, and mine does not. Once I understood that, I stopped trying to fix my memory and started building systems that work without it. The first thing: give every category of objects one specific home and call it a zone. This was the single most life-changing shift I made, and I want to explain why it works specifically for those of us whose memory is not reliable. When objects do not have a specific, deliberate home, putting them away requires a decision, and decisions require memory. You have to remember where you decided something goes and whether that decision is still the current one. When your memory is not reliable, this system fails constantly, and things end up wherever they are set down rather than wherever they belong. When you create a zone, one specific container or spot for one specific category of things, something entirely different happens. The decision has already been made, and made permanently. The condiments go in the bin on the left side of the refrigerator door, always. And because the decision is already made, putting something away requires no memory at all. You see the condiment, you put it in the bin. The bin is always in the same place. There is nothing to remember. I started with my refrigerator, the way I recommend everyone start. I put all the condiments in one clearly defined spot with a label. Within a week, I had stopped hunting for the ketchup. Within a month, everyone who used the refrigerator was automatically returning things to the zone because it made the choice obvious and effortless. The memory requirement had been removed, and the organization maintained itself. I then did this throughout my entire home. A zone for the morning bathroom routine, a zone for medications and vitamins, a zone in the kitchen for the things that come in and need to go somewhere temporarily, a zone in the entry for the things that need to leave the house. Each zone is one container or one spot, clearly defined, never moved, and managed with no memory required beyond the initial setup. Tell me in the comments, is there one object or category of objects that you are constantly hunting for in your home? Tell me what it is and how long you've been looking for it in the same places before remembering it is somewhere else. I ask because that object is a perfect candidate for a zone, and I think you might be surprised how quickly the hunting stops. The second thing, use clutter catchers in the spots where things pile up anyway. something I had to accept about myself before I could start managing my home effectively. I put things down, not in their proper places, not in zones I have carefully established, but wherever I happen to be when I'm done with the thing, or when I arrive with the thing, or when I get distracted and set it down and walk away. This is not a habit I have successfully changed. What I have done instead is make that tendency work for me rather than against me. A clutter catcher is a dedicated spot in each location where I naturally put things down. Not storage, a temporary holding zone with a clear limit. A basket on the kitchen counter near the door. A tray on the entry table. A small bin on the bedside table. These spots exist because I am going to put things there whether the spot exists or not. When the spot is clearly defined, two things happen. First, the things that land there are at least contained rather than spread across the entire surface. Second, when the clutter catcher fills up, that fullness is a visual signal that it is time to deal with what is in it. Without the clutter catcher, things pile on surfaces until the pile becomes overwhelming and I stop seeing it. With the clutter catcher, the pile has a physical limit. When the basket is full, I can see it is full and I deal with it. A quick circuit of the house, everything returned to its proper zone, 5 to 10 minutes, and the house is reset. The clutter catcher does not eliminate the putting down habit. It contains it, limits it, and makes it manageable. If you are not yet subscribed, please subscribe now. I share this kind of real practical wisdom about managing a home every week, and I would genuinely love for you to be here for these conversations. The third thing, make every system as simple as possible to use. This is the principle that, once I understood it, helped me see why so many of my previous organizing systems had failed. When putting something away requires more than 2 steps, I do not consistently do it. And when I do not consistently put things away, they accumulate wherever they were last set down, and the system falls apart. Think about a filing cabinet with hanging folders and individual labeled folders inside them. To file a piece of paper, I need to open the drawer, find the right hanging folder, find the right individual folder within it, and slide the paper in. That is 4 steps. 4 steps is too many for me to do reliably, especially when I am distracted or tired or moving towards something else. So the paper gets set on the counter instead, and the counter becomes a paper surface, and the paper surface grows. The solution is to strip every system down to 1 or 2 steps. For paper, I now have 1 folder for things that need action and 1 for things that need to be kept. 2 options, 0 searching, 1 or 2 steps maximum. For clothing worn but not ready to wash, I have a specific hook rather than a chair or the floor. For items that belong in another room, a basket by the door. For the remote control, a tray on the coffee table. 1 step each. Every time I find myself not putting something away consistently, I ask, how many steps does this require? The fix is almost always to reduce the steps, rather than to try harder to remember. Tell me in the comments, what is one thing in your home that never makes it back to where it belongs? Tell me where it always ends up instead. I am guessing the place where it always ends up is the 1-step option, and that the place it is supposed to go is the 3 or 4-step option. The 4th thing, Use visual reminders rather than relying on memory. When I was younger, I kept things in my head. Appointments, tasks, things I needed to do before I left the house. Somewhere in the last decade and a half, my head became an unreliable place to store things. I would remember that I had to do something without being able to remember what it was. I would arrive at the grocery store having forgotten the list. I would leave the house and only remember in the parking lot that I had meant to bring something. The solution was to stop relying on my memory entirely and start using my eyes instead. My eyes work reliably. If I can see something, I know about it. If it is in a drawer or a cabinet or a list in my phone, it might as well not exist. I now use sticky notes, small notepads in every room, a whiteboard in the kitchen, and framed boards that display whatever is currently most important. The thing I must not forget to bring when I leave the house, the appointment that is coming, the task I need to complete before bed. These are not aesthetically exciting, but they work every single day without requiring me to remember anything. I keep a small notebook beside my bed and one in the kitchen where I make my morning tea. These are for brain dumps. The moment I think of something I need to remember, I write it down immediately. Not later, not when I find the right place for it, immediately, in whichever notebook is closest. The thought leaves my head and lives on paper where I can see it. This habit alone has saved me from forgetting more important things than I can count. The fifth thing, batch your errands into one day. This was one of the simplest changes I ever made, and one that has had an outsized impact on my daily sense of calm. When I was running errands throughout the week, every day had at least one interruption, one trip out that broke my routine, one thing I had to remember to do and then remember again on a different day if I forgot. My weeks felt fractured and reactive, and I was constantly remembering things I should have done yesterday or forgetting things I was supposed to do tomorrow. Now I have one errand day, every Friday. The grocery run, the pharmacy, the appointments I can schedule flexibly, the returns, the banking, anything that takes me outside my normal home routine. If something comes up on a Tuesday that needs an errand, it goes on the Friday list. The exception is true emergencies, which are rarer than I used to think. What errand day does for memory and clutter is significant. I have one place where the list lives, one day where the things on it get done, and the rest of the week belongs to the routines that keep my home in order. I am not half managing a list of errands in my head throughout the week. The list is written. Friday is when it happens. My mental space is freed up for everything else. Tell me in the comments, do you run errands throughout the week or do you batch them? And if you batch them, do you find it genuinely reduces the feeling of constant things to do? I love hearing what works for different people. The sixth thing, store everything where you actually use it. This sounds so obvious that I almost did not include it. But I ignored this principle for most of my adult life, and ignoring it was directly responsible for an enormous amount of my clutter. The reason things pile where they should not be is almost always that the place where they belong is not the place where they are used. The dog food stored in the garage but fed in the kitchen meant the bag was always sitting out by the bowl. The knitting in the bedroom but knitted in the living room meant yarn and needles accumulated on the sofa. Once I started storing things where I actually used them, the clutter in those areas almost completely disappeared. The knitting basket lives beside the chair where I knit. The reading glasses live in the rooms where I read. The cleaning supplies live in the bathroom and the kitchen, not in a central cupboard requiring a special trip. The tools I use for small household tasks live near where I use them. This principle requires honesty about where you actually live in your home versus where you think you should be doing things. I do not always do things where they are supposed to happen. Organizing around where I actually am rather than where I theoretically should be has made my home dramatically more functional and dramatically less cluttered. Please subscribe if you have not already. Every week I share what I've learned about maintaining a home that works with how you actually live rather than against it. The seventh thing, close the kitchen every evening. This is the habit that protects the next morning. When I was working, I learned the importance of closing properly at the end of a shift, clearing everything down, dealing with what needed to be dealt with, leaving the space ready for whoever came next. I have brought that same habit into my kitchen, and it is one of the things that most consistently keeps my home feeling manageable. Every evening, before I go to bed, I do 5 things in the kitchen. I deal with the dishes, I wipe down the counter surfaces, I put away anything that has drifted to the counter during the day, I empty the bin if it needs it, and I do a quick check of what the next morning will require. This takes between 5 and 10 minutes. I do it so consistently that it has become automatic, a part of the evening that happens without much conscious decision. The result is that I wake up every morning to a kitchen that is ready to be used. There is no morning clutter to deal with before I can make my tea. There is no pile of last night's dishes reminding me of something I did not quite finish. The morning starts from a clear baseline, which means the rest of the day starts from a clear baseline, and the clutter that would otherwise accumulate through the day starts from 0 rather than from an already compromised position. The 8th thing, use a 2-minute tidy throughout the day. I learned this late and wish I had learned it earlier because it is the habit that most directly trains the brain into the kind of automatic tidiness that feels like it belongs to naturally organized people. Set a small reminder on your phone or your watch for every 2 or 3 hours throughout the day. When the reminder goes off, spend exactly 2 minutes putting things back where they belong. Not cleaning, not organizing, just returning things that have drifted to their zones in their homes. 2 minutes is not enough time to feel like a chore. Done 5 or 6 times throughout the day, it adds up to 10 or 12 minutes of continuous maintenance that prevents the kind of accumulation that requires a full hour to undo. And more importantly, the repetition, done consistently over weeks, begins to rewire how you automatically interact with objects. You start to return things to their places without the reminder, because the habit has become the default. I used to be someone who set things down and forgot them. I am now someone who, more often than not, automatically returns things when I am done with them. The reminders are still there, but I often find I have already done the tidy before the reminder goes off. That is what consistent habit practice produces, and the 2-minute tidy is the most direct path to it that I have found. Tell me in the comments, do you have a tidy routine that you do regularly throughout the day? Or do you tend to address the clutter only when it has accumulated to the point of bothering you? I am genuinely curious whether the continuous small approach or the periodic larger approach works better for different people. Pick one thing from this list to start. The zone is the one I recommend because it produces the fastest visible results and requires no ongoing effort once it is established. Give one category of things you are constantly hunting for a permanent labeled home. Do only that for 2 weeks. Notice what changes. Then add another. The goal is not a perfectly organized home that requires constant heroic effort to maintain. The goal is a home that works with your memory rather than against it, requires minimal decision-making to keep in order, and resets to a good baseline with a few minutes of daily attention. That home is entirely achievable, regardless of how unreliable your memory feels right now. I know because I live in it. I want to hear from you now. In the comments, tell me which of these 8 things you are going to try first. And if you already do any of them, tell me how it is working and what difference it has made for you. Your experience matters to everyone else reading these comments, and I read every single one. And please subscribe if you have not already. Every week I share real practical wisdom about keeping a home that stays organized and manageable for people who want to live well in their space without spending all day fighting to maintain it. I will see you next week.